这些人要么丢失了，要么找不着了，要么被抓了，要么进在监狱里，要么自杀了。而且绝大多数人都有一个共同的死法，叫堕落死。因为那里有一个独裁的政党，叫共产党。海航是代表共产党在西方的一个间谍平台、洗钱平台和对西方政治进行蓝金黄的渗透平台。
1年多已经卖了3500多亿，是全世界数第1号。
Over 2 events, one that happened in London earlier in the spring, and then one that happened in Turkey several weeks ago. The one in the spring was the poisoning of Russian dissidents or Russian citizens in London. And the one the last couple of weeks was it looks like the killing of a Washington Post columnist, Khashoggi, in Turkey. And both these situations, as tragic as they were, created an international media firestorm. Well, what we're here today, and Miles Guo is going to walk you through, is something that's quite frankly stunning. Literally hundreds, if not thousands, of the best and the brightest of the Chinese people are either missing, have been imprisoned, have committed suicide, have died under mysterious circumstances, or have had their assets taken from them and are impoverished. And the world's media today has not connected the dots, or there's literally been no outrage. Now, this is not 1 or 2 isolated cases, and these are not people who are not insignificant in media, in their corporate life, in the financial life, in government, in the military. It's across the board, and it's men and it's women. It is absolutely stunning that this could go on in a culture, a global culture that's connected by media, and there's literally crickets. Well, that ends today. And it ends because one man's prepared to stand up and say, he's not prepared to tolerate this, and he will use every asset at his disposal to bring truth to this, to make sure the Chinese people do not come under any more assault as they're already coming from the Chinese Communist Party and the senior leadership of the CCP. Today is about recklessness and accountability. As many people in the world, and particularly in the world's financial centers, are starting to understand, the Chinese Communist Party and the senior leadership of the CCP have acted financially recklessly over the last 10, 15, or 20 years. And that printing of currency and increasing of debt and everything that that's causing and will cause in the future, I believe in a coming financial crisis, can be seen in the example that Miles Guo is going to walk through today. We have one of the, if not the largest financial company in the world, that has essentially been created from a very small company, and from 2014 to 2018 became, I think, arguably the largest financial company in the world, with the aid and support of major Western financial institutions and major financial players in the West. And the question has to be, how reckless was this? Who benefited from this? Who owns this? Who took these assets from the Chinese people? Who profited off this? Who looked the other way?
Oops. Oh, okay. Sorry. I was being told by KK that I muted myself. Sorry about that. So, good afternoon again. And this is Rachel, and this is the Legal Battle of the Century. So, welcome to joining us at this afternoon at 2 p.m. We did move the time, so and I didn't make a short notice announcement. So, sorry for that. And today is 2022 and September 28th. And in the live broadcasting room, I'm very happy that I have Nicole again. So Nicole just came in and will be joining me in this episode. So Nicole, do you want to say hello?
Oh, hi, Rachel. Hi, KK. And hi, everybody. I'm Nicole. Very happy to come to today's show. And yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So thank you, Nicole. So today we still have lots of to talk about. This topic is just, fascinating. There's so much to uncover for everybody. So it's amazing that Miles School has, walked us through not only the case, because, everything started. We started the show that we wanted to review what's behind the case and what's really Miles School is fighting, in the U.S. court beyond the written complaint submitted by PAX or PAG, PAG. PAX's parent company. It's not about the loan about 30 million and Miles School's personal guarantee, and they accuse of Miles not returning the money, owning the money. So it's really beyond that. So that's what we really want people to see. What's really at stake, and what are the two forces of fighting through, on the surface, you look at the legal cases in the United States between PAX and Miles, but behind it, it's really the CCP and kleptocrats and the force of righteousness, which is the whistleblower movement and which is the followers, fellow fighters, and the truth tellers that following Miles School. So today we're going to continue. We have two agenda today. This topic is because we discussed it with Nicole, I discussed it with Nicole, and we will probably cover the death of Wang Jian in a span of maybe 3 or 4 episodes, just because there's a lot of details and a lot of things that we don't want to brush easily to brush over for you, because if we dig deeper and think it over, there's a lot of things we should be scared of. That's why we want to slow it down and walk you through those things. But today we will mainly continue our previous conversation and a theme, which is the second slide. If KK, if you can, just put it on the screen so for us to see. So we were talking about HNA and the kleptocrat Wang Qishan and the kleptocracy. We learned quite a bit about the Chinese economic reform and those kleptocrats, how they steal the state-owned enterprises assets and put them into their own pocket and calling it privatization. So we talk about Wang Qishan, and we talk about the rise of HNA, which literally the biggest company is. If you paid attention to the intro video that Mr. Bannon was saying when he introduced the HNA, he used the words. He said it might be the biggest financial company in the world. Yes, you heard it right. It started as a humble airline, but you definitely can say it's a financial company. So, and then we talked, about the ownership of HNA. I think in the previous episodes, I think 2 or 3 episodes ago, and then continued on. And then in last episode and the one prior to the last, we spent tons of time on architecture art project, kind of combing through some of the hidden relationship between the kleptocrats and their illegitimate sons parked abroad all over the world, basically. So today we're going to continue with the same, the rise in Wang Qishan and HNA, but we're specifically focusing on white gloves and particularly Wang Jian. And maybe in the beginning of the show we will give you some examples of others as well before we actually in the show talk about Wang Jian's death. So I will give it to Nicole. So Nicole, you take on and tell us what's white gloves, because in the previous episode we talked about it, but I want you to maybe just refresh our mind again. Thank you, Nicole.
Okay, I think white gloves are those people who cultivated and recruited by the CCP kleptocrats to launder money, gain wealth, and transfer the wealth to where the kleptocrats wish, and they don't really own the assets. They help to pass the wealth money, properties to their owners and kleptocrats. And they do whatever basically their masters order them to do. It's kind of like the masters, these kleptocrats just cast a spell on them and they just follow them. And I think these white gloves, they know the games because they are the insiders and they are kind of loyal servants and they play the games. But I think maybe sometimes they could be naive and I think they can get away from get away from it. But like the video we watched from Mr. Van Bannon, he said actually lots of the people are being imprisoned, being committed suicide, and died under mysterious circumstances and so on. And I think when we talk about Wang Jian's death, and we will see a clearer picture.
Yes. Yeah. So I just want to clarify that because in English, in Western culture, when we say white gloves, we're talking about elite services, those premium services. People say, we're going to provide you with white glove services, but this is different, different meaning. So Nicole just explained, these are people. These are individuals. And a lot of them, as we can see, we're going to give you some examples. And a lot of them you can see, they truly believed that they are special. They truly believed that they, they have established a great, close, personal relationship with their servant. With their master, which are those, kleptocrats. So they sometimes truly believed it. That's why they really showed their loyalty to those folks. But as we have been telling and sharing on this platform is those kleptocrats, they're not human anymore. Most of them are demons. They can actually use test tubes and create babies and allow those babies to carry out their ambitions. They're beyond human, and their insidious nature is appalling. So I don't see them as a human anymore. That's why they always pretending they're a human being and they pretending they're one of us, but they are really not because they're killing. They're killing machines, and we will explain more to you why this is. And the death of Wang Jian is actually the best example of it. But let's roll on. And first of all, we're gonna give you a taste of who are the white gloves out there. There's tons of them in China. Okay, so let's go to slide number 4. So slide number 4, you will see a lot of the famous brands on this picture. And, for the Westerners, I think a lot of you, especially, even for diasporas, for Chinese-speaking people, we know Alibaba because it's huge, right? It's Taobao, it's Alibaba. That's where you shop. That's the biggest e-commerce platform in China and internationally because you can literally go to AliExpress and purchase anything online with just a couple of strokes, basically. And that's Jack Ma. And Jack Ma is the founder of Alibaba Group. And then next to it, I started from the top left. So next to it is Wanda. It's the Wanda Group. Okay, it's a real estate tycoon, but they kind of morphed into anything, financial, insurance, entertainment, sports game, like you name it. So they're really branched into a lot of other business areas. And he was. I should say he still is. He is the founder of the Wanda Group, and his name is Wang Jianling. And then at the bottom, on the bottom left, there are a group of 4 people, and the person wearing white top, that's Jack Ma. But the other 3 are also white gloves. You may never heard of their names, but you probably, if you go on Google it after the show, you will find they actually made headlines in all over the world. Okay, and the person on the far left, called Zhang Songqiao, his name might be spelled differently. Because he went to Hong Kong and that's where he took off. His career, like a business entrepreneurship took off, and in Hong Kong. So there's a Hong Kong way of spelling his name. But if you look at London, if you go search his name on Guardians, like the Guardians, the newspaper in Europe, and you will find he has been on the headlines making real estate deals like billions of pounds Okay, so buying office buildings, buying residential buildings, like he is truly a mysterious person, rich person. Okay, and then the next to him is Liu Luanxiong, who is basically native Hong Kongese, and he's also in real estate business. And he was released from prison actually, but he kept a low profile right now because of his past history. So, and then Xu Jiaying. So you also must be very familiar because lately we heard a lot of news about his company, which is Evergrande. It's the real estate that company, the largest one in China, that's about to fall. Okay, so they're default already on so many payments coming due. So that's the 4 white gloves. And if you recall, when I mentioned, every company belongs to someone, and that someone is one of those CCP's top 100 families, or ultimately the top 3 factions. So all of them are working for the top 3 or 4 or 5, according to Miles, is no more than 10 families. Okay, so these are white gloves, but I'm going to leave one person on this picture, which is the one on the right corner. I will leave that to Nicole because Nicole did some research on him. So Nicole, go ahead.
Okay, so the CCP has used a large number of the white gloves, and you can also call them money laundering agents to engage in illegal activities. But apparently, these people and the companies are familiar, like celebrities, because all these faces, Rachel introduced, they are very famous, and everybody know them, and the famous companies. So Rachel already mentioned quite a few of them, and there are other people like Ma Huateng of Tencent, and Xiao Jianhua of Tomorrow Holding Corporated Limited, and also Ye Jianming of CEFC China Energy, Ma Mingzhe of Ping An Group, and all these people. And I think all these people, they share something very, very similar. And we'll talk about Guo Guangchang in a sec. Is they are all very talented, they are very ambitious, they're successful, elites, powerful, wealthy, good education. And now let's have a look at Guo Guangchang. And maybe we can compare him with Wang Jian, and let's see whether there are some of the similarities there. And I think Guo Guangchang is the chairman and co-founder of Fuxing International Limited. And a brief introduction of his background. And he's also from a key university. So he was born in Zhejiang. He's also very young. He was born in 1967. He's quite young, but he was born in Zhejiang, but he made his fortune in Shanghai because he graduated from the Fudan University, where he met a very important partner is Liang Xinjun, and whom he they had a company later on is called the company is called they choose one character from each person's name and they made this company. Sorry, the name will come up to me in a sec. I'm very sorry. And the major and Guo Guangchang he studied was just philosophy. However, Liang Xinjun, the major he studied was genetic engineering. So later on, with other 3 more people whose major were also genetic engineering, they formed the Fuxing Pharma. And so Fuxing is a group of companies. The business currently covered by Fuxing includes Fuxing Property Holdings and Fuxing Pharma. It also includes entertainment and tourism, various business and integrated together into one group called the Fuxing Group. So if we think about the Hainan Airline and the group, it actually is very, very it's very similar. And then Fuxing Pharma at that time was first listed in Shanghai very early in 1998, was probably one of the first batches of companies to be listed on the Shanghai Stock Exchange. I think the same thing happened to Hainan Airline, which is in 1999, I think they were listed in the Shanghai.
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
so it's very similar time, and then later on, something happened in a very special year. It's 2017 again, and Guo Guangchang's partner Liang Xinjun, he actually resigned from the position of chairman and CEO of Fuxing Group on March the 28th, 2017, and then in 2017 January. It was said the entire Fuxing Group was under investigation and was under financial review by various agencies of the China Banking Regulatory Commission. So if we look at all these, and you can see loads of the similarities, and to Hainan Airline, and Guo Guangchang is kind of just like Wang Jian, and who's the kleptocrat and behind Guo Guangchang, and so we can see this PowerPoint as his backstage backer is Zhu Yunlai. Zhu Yunlai is the eldest son of Zhu Rongji, a former premier of the People's Republic of China. And Zhu joined China International. So Zhu Yunlai, he joined the China International Capital Corporation, which was then a fledgling investment bank based in China in 1998. Zhu served as CEO of the firm between 2004 and 2014. So once again, I think Zhu Yunlai, he's got kind of very strong background, kind of just like Wang Qishan. And then I think Wang Ji, I would think about like Yao Yiling. In this case, I think this is the similarities.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned about CICC, the China International Capital Corporation, right? So if we remind everybody, that was a corporation established in 1995, and Wang Qishan, okay, the main character that we are focusing on in our episode is actually the first executive chairman of the CICC, and he was very instrumental because prior to that he was the head of the Construction Bank of China, right? And then CICC was a Sino joint, a foreign like a Sino-foreign joint venture. So it was a Morgan Stanley and Construction Bank, the Chinese Construction Bank. So that is why Wang Qishan at the time was a boss, but he couldn't done that without the person in the picture, which is the older gentleman, Zhu Rongji, because Zhu Rongji, like Wang Qishan's father-in-law, you know, they are basically the power center. At that time, Zhu Rongji was the first vice premier, you know, and Yao Yiling already was a step higher than Zhu Rongji, but all of them are the power of the center. So that's the time that they actually collaborated, you know, they did a lot of things together. And it's also confirmed that Zhu Yunlai, as Nicole mentioned, is now the big boss behind, you know, Fuxing Group. The reason why is the older guy is too old. I think he's already 90 or something. 90, the Zhu Rongji is already 90. So the second generations of those kleptocrats are taking the business. Just like, you know, Yao Yiling, remember Yao Yiling's only legitimate son, yeah, Yao Mingwei, died in 2001. Otherwise, he would be the big boss. But because he died, so Yao Yiling passed everything on his son-in-law, which is Wang Qishan. So Wang Qishan is basically the second generation of the kleptocrats. Okay, and then those kleptocrats are wanting to build their dynasty forever. They want the sun never fall, so they create those test tubes and architecture art projects. So we are seeing the generation 3rd, 4th, 5th that's coming along the line, and they might no longer look like Chinese. Right now they all look Chinese, but they might no longer look like Chinese. They might look like you. They might look like a Caucasian or East Indian, like whoever. You know, so that's why the CCP are truly evil and existential threats to the world, to the people who are loving democracy, and that's why we're doing this show. We want to tell you how evil they are, what they've done. And so thank you, Nicole, for the comparison. So we drew the comparison. So between Yao Yiling's family, Wang's family, and Zhu Rongji's family, and their white gloves. And we don't want to lead everybody to thinking that white gloves only serve one kleptocrat. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they serve multiple, especially when this multiple kleptocrats family are in the same faction. Okay, because we talk about ultimately on the top, there are three major factions. So Wang Qishan, Jiang Zeming, Zhu Rongji, Meng Jianzhu. All those people belong to the same faction, and which Nicole has mentioned, Fudan University, right? Fudan University is a top Chinese university based in Shanghai. So we always call those people Shanghai Gan. So their base is Shanghai. They went to the same universities, and they have, just like Ivy League here in the West, if you go to Harvard, you have your alumni, you have your network. It's kind of a similar concept. So these are people graduate from Fudan, so they have their own network, their own people. So when they recruiting, remember the white gloves definition, these are recruited and cultivated. Okay, so they are looking for people coming from the same alma mater. So basically, coming from the same university, they will give them priorities in recruitment, I guess. So next, we want to, before we go to the main topic, we're gonna doing some information for you. The second example we're going to give you is this guy. So let's go to the slide number 5. That's Xiao Jianhua. So we already talked to you about, we have tons of white gloves. We give you an example of Guo Guangchang, right? And then their boss behind them. And then we're going to talk about Xiao Jianhua, because this is truly suspicious and kind of linked to the usual tactics that the CCP has always done. They are proven they are international crime syndicate. Transnational crime syndicate or organization. So slide number 5. So I numbered them. So let's read it in this order. So number 1. So Hong Kong newspaper Mingbao. It's a very famous local newspaper anyway. It's pretty much everybody in Hong Kong knows Mingbao. They published a public statements on behalf of Xiao Jianhua. It feels like Xiao Jianhua actually published this. But anyway, it's on 2017. Yes, 5 years ago, more than 5 years ago, February 1st. And Mingbao put out a personal statement. So let's take a look at what the personal statement actually said. KK, could you go to slide number 6? Because this picture only shows you Chinese, so I translate it into English, so you will know what it says. So the slide number 6 says, Xiao Jianhua statements on February 1st. I appreciate the concern of all folks. I am currently undergoing treatment abroad and will meet with the media soon after completing the treatment. And second, he said, I believe the Chinese government is a civilized and rule of law government. Please do not misunderstand. I wasn't kidnapped back to mainland China. Okay, if I don't tell you anything, Nicole, what do you think? When you read, if I'm just a regular Hong Kongese or whatever, I'm walking on the street of Hong Kong and picked up a newspaper and I don't know who Xiao Jianhua is. I have nothing. I don't know anything about him. And I read this statement. What's your reaction to that?
I would think it's very strange why you have to make announcement about something. It's like which is not. And something kind of huge. It's kind of like why you have to mention I wasn't kidnapped. That means there's something happened and made everybody just feel are kidnapped. And also
exactly.
Yeah, and you have
Go ahead,
to say
Nico.
Civilized and Chinese government is civilized. It's kind of like you have to. If something is true, you don't really need to emphasize. And if something is not true, you have to just repeat it again and again. Like the CCP is civilized, something like, which is not. So I think it's very strange and funny in a not good way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's very true. If I don't know anything about this, then your statement made me wanted to know what happened to Xiao Jianhua. How did he go missing? Like, why he's saying that Chinese government is civilized and rule of law government, and why he's saying that he's undergoing treatment. All those things and bring question mark and makes you more curious, wants to know more. Okay, so let's take a look. Remember that was in 2017, February 1st. Okay, so what happened is Xiao Jianhua disappeared on 2017, January 27, in the luxury hotels in Hong Kong. But Xiao Jianhua is a Canadian citizen. Okay, so he has a Canadian passport. He was in Hong Kong, and then he disappeared. And so one of his direct reports, who now is fellow fighters in the whistleblower movement, and he's known to many fellow fighters, and he actually once said, during that period of time when the boss is gone missing, and the company, nobody knows what happened to Xiao Jianhua, even those direct reports, even those people who worked with him closely every day. Okay, they constantly on the phone, but suddenly he went missing and go quiet and silent. They even don't know what's going on. This is something really, really mysterious, okay? Even from the insider who actually at that time working in Tomorrow's group and working alongside with Xiao Jianhua. And then, okay, let's take a look at the second newspaper. That was from The Guardian. That was reported that tycoon who disappeared from Hong Kong hotel in 2017 stands trial in China. So that was a couple weeks ago that they are actually, so Xiao Jianhua in China, in Shanghai, actually the trial was happening in Shanghai. But according to this report, the trial was holding secretly. Nobody knows, what his charges even is. Nobody knows, because usually you're indicted for something, you would know, you were announced, but nobody even know at that time. And then because he's a Canadian, so the Canadian diplomats has contacted the courts many times asking for, witnessing the trial, and they did not get any response or permission. I can't remember either permission or response. But anyway, so he so basically the sentence already come. That's the number 3. If you look at the number 3, so New York Times broke out the news. So the Chinese Canadian billionaire, yes, he is a billionaire. The Tomorrow's group is huge. Is 300 billion yuan in assets, I think. If I remember correctly. So Chinese Canadian billion sentenced to 13 years for financial crimes. Okay, so finally they say financial crimes, bribery or whatever. And the New York Times also reviewed that 5 years ago he was being grabbed. He used the words, the newspaper used the words, grabbed from a Hong Kong hotel. So not only the 13 years in prison, also Tomorrow's group's being fined more than $8 billion US. Okay, that also a fine for the company, and also fined Xiao Jianhua personally. I think it was $5 million US, if my memory serves me right. So that's his ending. I mean, it's better than Wang Jian, don't you think so, Nicole?
Definitely, I think they share something, loads of things which is very similar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So at least he's alive. He's gonna be in the jail for 13 years, and then maybe he will be released. But we also know if the kleptocrats want to silence him, they will silence him in the prison, because there are a lot of other cases. When Xu Ming died, he died in the jail, right? So the kleptocrats who backed Xu Ming killed him, because they don't want him to make any noise again, ever, because he knows too much. So who knows whether Xiao Jianhua is going to die in the jail, or he can walk out the jail safely without, losing his life. We will see. Time will tell. But Xiao Jianhua is just like the people that we talked in this show. He is one of those kleptocrats' white gloves. Okay, so very sad. I just want to briefly ask you, Nicole, because you mentioned about some commonalities about those people. Is there anything more you can think of in terms of their commonalities and in terms of their ending and their fate? Anything before we move on?
I think this might be something. I think 2017. This is definitely a very special year, and because an important person appeared on the stage, and I think it changed the whole game, I think. And so you can see all these kind of companies and being investigated. They started to, from their peak, coming down very, very sharply. And the white gloves are being investigated. The white gloves was being kind of like committed suicide, all these mysterious murder. Or being locked.
Okay. Yeah. So there have various ways of I guess punishment from the CCP kleptocrats, although they've worked for them and they've showed their loyalty, but still they cannot escape their fate because they just know too much, and it's not safe for the kleptocrats to keep them alive. So it's very sad. As you mentioned, a lot of them are actually smart, intelligent. I mean, there's a lot of smart, intelligent Chinese out there. So they're successful is definitely not because they're meritocracy. They're successful running huge companies, making deals like billions and millions with world-renowned organizations like, whoever, BlackRock or whatever, you name it. It's not because they are really capable. It's because those people who are behind them. And those people are channeling and ordering all those deals and backdoor negotiations and money launder things happening and corruption. So the CCP kleptocrats and the whole dictatorship regime is export corruption to everywhere. Okay, so to Europe, United States, to Africa, to South America, you name it. Okay, so this is why we have to wake up the deplorables. If we don't do something, if we don't understand what's really going on, how this world arrived at this crossroads, it is because of the CCP. That's why we say the CCP are the root cause for all the disasters, and there truly is, because you can connect all those things back to the dictatorship, back to this totalitarian transnational crime organization. So we've said enough, and then we go to maybe slide 7, KK, if possible, because I see that it has been at the slides 5 for a while. So I'm not sure whether you showed the slide 6 or not, but we already passed on that. So let's directly go to the slide 7, and it says security services MI5. So here, why I'm saying this is because I want people to understand espionage activities no longer is the way that we used to see in Hollywood movie, because it's more secularized, let's say. It's more common now. Okay, so that's why I wanted to raise this as alarm to everyday folks like me. I was quite innocent and I didn't know a lot of this, if not because Miles is whistleblowing. And so this is a concept of a targets of espionage. And I find the definition on the on MI5 internet. I'm sure you can find something similar on FBI, because MI5 is similar to FBI. They're more kind of a inward focusing, like MI6 is more like a CIA. So here it says in the past, okay, so this is in the past, espionage activities are typically directed towards obtaining political and military intelligence, like the Cold War. Like, when you talk about this, we're thinking about Russian spies, shot at the head and died on the street or something like that. So, but today we're technology driven. Okay, we're no longer just passing papers and decoding, and we're no longer that. The information transmitting so fast, right? So technology changed. So how the spy does their work, how the spies do their work changed, and those kleptocrats are changed. So here it says, they now include communications technology, IT, energy, scientific research, defense, aviation, electronics, and many other fields. Here, this is important. It says, intelligence services, therefore, are targeting commercial as well as government-related organizations. Okay, so this is interesting. So now the intelligence services, unlike before, they are now targeting at commercial as well as government-related organizations. They sometimes do this on behalf of state-owned or sponsored company in their own countries. Okay, so when I read this, I think a lot about the CCP and the Chinese government, because we have so many white gloves and they're serving their, kleptocrats. They're basically actors, for lack of better words. They look like they're successful entrepreneurs, they're businessmen, they're investment, they kind of know how, kind of making money in a quick way. But these are just actors, and they're basically deception. They're a tool of deception that the kleptocrats are using and put a persona in front of you, so you don't know what's going on. So, but these are commercial activities. So not only they're white gloves, sometimes they actually acting as a spy, doing espionage, sharing sensitive information, recruiting the key peoples, and they doing all this on behalf of kleptocrats. But in communist China, the evil regime, the kleptocrats doing everything in the name of the nation and the people. If you remember, in a number of episodes ago, I mentioned about, what's the typical things you were observed is all those kleptocrats, assuming those, official, high-ranking official positions within the China as a country. They say they serve the people. They say they bite to the rule of law, but no, they're really not. They're only thinking about their own and their families and their kleptocrats dynasties. So that's why I also told you in previous shows, there's no state-owned enterprise anymore. When you look at the state-owned enterprise, these are equal to kleptocrats-owned enterprise. When you look at the private enterprise, these are equal to kleptocrats-owned enterprises. So everything in China is owned by these kleptocrats families. Okay. So this is something I wanted to everybody to remember. So this will lead to us to refresh our mind on the CCP's BGY plan before we move on. Okay, so because in this episode I will not spend too much time on that, but I just wanted to let you know, Miles once blew the whistle and told us that HNA is basically a platform for carrying out espionage activities. He has once said that they're not only laundering money, but it's also a huge espionage platform. Okay, so saying that, I wanted KK to maybe refresh our mind on one of the CCP's plan called BGY plan against the free world. So KK, do you want to? Sorry, not KK. Nicole, do you want to take that part?
Yes, and thank you, Rachel. And I just want to add something to what you just said. I think the CCP kleptocrats, they, in the name of like a family-oriented, and by saying serving the people, actually all people are their slaves, including the white gloves, of course. And so they're not really for the people. It's not state-owned, like Rachel said. And now coming back to the BGY plan, I think I think B is like stands for like technology, and the gold is stands for like the money and financial benefits, and the yellow is kind of more like the spy espionage and honey traps to compromise the blackmail targets of espionage. And I think I listed quite a few areas on the right, but actually I think the BGY has been infiltrated at all levels and in all areas. And before I move on to the next like 1,000 talents plan, I just want to talk about something which actually happened to myself. And because when I'm a teacher, and when I first arrived in the UK, and I worked first of my school was kind of posh school, and so I just saw this Confucius Institute. So I was quite surprised.
Yeah.
How come there's so? And then I was told there's so many Confucius Institute, like because they even have their kind of the classrooms, have their badge, have the teachers. So I'm kind of curious. So I just asked. Okay, I said, oh wow, it's not really easy to come into your schools. How come you can? The UK has so many Confucius institutes, and then I was told, and I understand totally why, because in England, all the education kind of like the schools, they all want fundings, they want money, and Confucius Institute did not go into the school based on how good they are or their reputation or anything, because they paid to go there. And
yes,
the department is so happy to receive all the money and the funding. And because they want to have the extra money to spend on things. And the Confucius Institute, the CCP didn't know what the people need. And they want money. And so they provided money. And if there's some other organizations want to all these other trades, and they will do the business. So this is something happened to me. So I just think, oh, interesting about I think that was before the Whistle Blue movement. So I just think, oh, it's kind of interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm going to talk about like the 1,000 talents plan. Oh, sure.
So you're going to slide number 10, right? So let's flip to the slide number 10, KK.
Am I did I miss the slide?
No, go ahead. Yeah, we can go that order. I can come back to slide number 9. So you go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, okay. So, I'm going to talk about this 1,000 Talents Plan. It's also happening in the academic area. And so this professor, his name is Lieber, and Professor Lieber, he worked in Harvard University, and he's the dean of Harvard University Department of Chemistry. In 2019, December 21st, a Boston court jury ruled that a professor he was convinced of 6 charges for making false statements about his participation in the CCP's 1,000 Talents program and for dishonestly filing tax returns. And so what is this 1,000 Talents plan? It is a means of intelligence warfare carried out by the CCP since 2008 to buy high-level overseas researchers in a planned way and therefore stealing high-tech strategic information from various countries, like Rachel mentioned previous. And then this Professor Lieber, he was bought by the CCP in 2011 and became a strategic scientist of Wuhan University of Technology, joined the 1,000 Talents program. And so Lieber is accused of concealing his involvement in China's 1,000 Talents program, which is designed to attach people with access to foreign technology and intellectual property to help China. And also, he was being given loads of the money. And in Lieber's 1,000 Talents contract, Wuhan University of Technology paid him $50,000 a month. That is really a lot of money, up to $158,000 for living expenses. And he's also received over 1.5 million in grants to establish research laboratories in Chinese universities. In exchange, Lieber agreed to publish articles, organize international conferences, and apply for patents on behalf of Chinese universities, among other things. Yeah, and the FBI special agent in Boston, he said, no country poses a greater, more serious and a long-term threat to our security and economic property than China. Yeah, so this is said by the FBI agent.
Okay, yeah, thank you for sharing. So I'm gonna stay on this topic. The reason why we wanted to go to the 1,000 Talent program is because remember the espionage thing that we said espionage today looks different. Okay, it more focusing on commercial. So the spy today looks different. You know, there are no longer COVID trained intelligence officer. They're become everyday person. As you see on this picture, you know, one of the spy looks Shan Weijian, and he is the chairman and CEO of the PAX. And again, in Miles's case, PAX is a plantif, is a parent company of the PAX plantif, and you know, they're private equity firms. They play, you know, billions, big monies basically on world equity market, New York, London, stock exchange, you name it. So as I want to say, so where do you find those capable, you know, seamlessly harmless people, you know, and they're willing to work for a totalitarian regime for whatever money, maybe, just as Nicole mentioned, you know. So they have to think about it. So that's why they thought in 2018 they made this program. They officially named it. They want to publicize it. They want to promote it. It does not mean that the Chinese government has not recruited people prior to that. They did. They have always been. They have always been ironing on the right person and converting them to work for the CCP, to work for the Communist Party. But in 2008, they are under the banner of strengthening, enhancing the culture or understanding of Western and Western countries and China. They want to promote and human resource exchange. They feel like this would this would enhance the mutual appreciation and bring more collaboration. You name it, the good words coming out of the CCP, but they're nothing but a lie. So they just made a program. That means they have money attached to it. How much money? I forgot the number because I once did the research. They were talking about when the beginning, they spent like $1 billion, I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. But there was 1/20 of the GDP they spent on this recruitment program. You can tell that they spent a lot of money. And who they're recruiting? Nicole just shared with us. This is a Charles Lieber. He look like a Caucasian American, but a lot of their people are hiring for Chinese who studied abroad. It may be people like me and maybe like people Nicole. If we are meeting some criteria, they were aimed and recruiting us. I actually have a personal friend that was recruited from NIH. He used to work for NIH for research postdoctor, and he's very successful. And he came back to China. He went to China and become a professor in China. So under the Thousand Talent program. And my very best friend. And then I actually know another colleague of mine in Canada. She's also a full tenure professor. She's very, very smart in her field. And she was hired back by one of the university in China. And I don't know what she does. She told me that every summer she needs to fly over there and deliver a seminar. And they gave her every month for stipend, even though she only go there once a year and doing 2 or 3 seminars. That's it. That's why when Nicole mentioned that they pay this Lieber guy $50,000 a lot, I'm guessing they pay him every month for doing nothing. That's a lot of money for doing nothing. And my friends who fly back to the University of China, one of the universities, and just teaching seminar, stayed there for 2 or 3 days, and she gets all the air travel and accommodation free. They're all reimbursed, and plus a stipend that in a lot of money. So why not? Why not you doing it? And that's why he kept a relationship with the university in China. But in her own fields, I don't know. I don't know whether she's helping the CCP or not, but I just know the fact that she currently still is a tenure professor in one of the Canadian university doing scientific and related research. So these things are happening on the ground. And on the slides, there's a 2 report that one produced by the United States, the Senator report in 2019 November, and threats to the U.S. research enterprise, Chinese talent recruitment plans. So in this report, they focused on the Thousand Talent program, but they also introduced many other smaller recruitment plans. If you're interested, reading it, because you will really know how Chinese government carry out its spy recruitment. All those people, I'm not saying they're all spies, but they are compromised because they're taking money from the CCP, and the CCP will make demands. One of the famous professors that died is Zhang Shoushen. I'm not sure whether Nicole, you heard of him or not? Zhang Shoushen was a tenure professor from Stanford University and in quantum physics. Okay, we're talking about quantum physics. I mean, it's probably the highest, the most promising scientific fields a professor can be in this day and age. Zhang Shoushen died. And how did he die? He suicided. And according to Miles, he was killed, basically. Okay, he was forced to die because, again, he knew too much secrets. Okay, we don't know the details, but he was also the targets of espionage. So, and then the other report is August of 2000, the Use Thousand Talent Plan and Chinese military. Okay, so you should be scared just by looking at the name of it. So it will tell you how many of those people, where did they go, where did they work for? These people, a lot of them are Chinese. Actually, they're not a Lieber, like a foreigner. Some of them are foreigners, but majority of them are Chinese descendants. They just actually studied or lived abroad for a long time, and then the Chinese government want them to come recruit them back to the country. and trying to find ways to compromise them. Okay, so read these reports if you don't understand what the Thousand Talent Program is and what are the real threats from the CCP government. These two reports will shed a light on that a little bit. And then back to the Shan Weijian. I have another I have another slides, KK, if you can put that slides on, because I think that's a perfect time to link Shan Weijian with Wang Qishan, just to see you, because the year and the timing is important. KK, let me know if you're ready, because I want to talk about that picture. Okay, so it's ready. So in this picture, you can see I put Shan Weijian on the left. And this is a Wikipedia about Shan Weijian information, so you can go and find yourself. So according to this Wikipedia, Shan Weijian is actually, if you start from the fourth sentence from the top, say he first attended the University of San Francisco in 1980 when he earned an MBA. So I'm not sure how many people actually know 1980. The people who can come to the United States study in 1980 are definitely not ordinary people. Okay, they're the first students that's sent by the Red Communist regime to foreign countries. Okay, right after Deng Xiaoping visited United States and started, talking diplomatic measures, like sending students, exchange students, but majority from China to United States, and he was among the first batch. So he is a guy that didn't even finish his primary school. So he has less than 6 years education, and then suddenly he could finish his MBA in 1980s in University of San Francisco. So I'm giving him that. He at least is smart and brilliant. And then he continue his study at the University of California, Berkeley, for master in economics and a PhD in business. So he's a doctor. In 1987, Shan worked at World Bank. Here you go. So this is where I want to show you the timing is so important. In the previous shows, we just give me a second. I need to plug in my laptop. I should have done this before the show, but I just realized that it gives me a warning that my battery is running low. Okay, so in the previous shows, when we talked about Wang Qishan, we talked about that Wang Qishan started with the World Bank in early 80s. Okay, so that's where he established building his financial empire. And he's a financial czar in communist China. So, but here, as later on, as a couple years later, Shan started work for World Bank. Okay, so I don't know whether they get to know each other at that time or even prior to that. I don't know, because Shan's parents in the previous, not previous show, but in the previous video that I made, I've shared with those audience that Shan's parents are also basically agents, worked for the Chinese Communist Party. They are they worked for their whole life in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Okay, so anyway, and then from 1987 to 1993, Shan went to teach in Wharton University of Pennsylvania, Wharton Business School, because he has a PhD, so he became a faculty member at the top Ivy League university, and this really gave him a lot of advantages to play a key role, an instrumental role in promoting the Thousand Talent Program. Okay, so when we mentioned about Shan Weijian, his official title on the surface is the chairman and CEO of PAG, but he actually recruit and connect dots for a lot of people and promoted the Thousand Talents Program. Okay, basically. And then the 6 years of faculty experience and connection with those elites, who studied in the elite university in the United States, he definitely has the advantage. And then in 1993, he went to JP Morgan, working for an investment bank. Okay, so, and guess what? If we look at Wang Qishan established 1995, what I just mentioned, the Chinese International Capital Corp. And that corporation was a joint venture, right, from Morgan Stanley, blah, blah. And that was coming to fruition in 1995. But prior to that, he was the construction bank head and, working with Wall Street, World Bank, those financial tycoons and leads in the West. So there's a parallel between Shan and Wang Qishan. So let's go on. So 1998, Shan went to the TPG, which is on another United States investment bank, now based in San Francisco, but I think the name was called Texas Pacific Group. So it was 1998. But and then 2010, Shan left the PTG and went to PAG. So let's look at the Wang Qishan. Wang Qishan, on the other hand, in 2007, he started the Chinese Investment Corporation. So today, Chinese Investment Corporation managing 1.2 trillion assets of the Chinese people. They started with managing the foreign exchange reserve for the Chinese people. So this is truly the sovereign wealth fund for the Chinese. But Wang Qishan created in 2017, at least pushed it, and he was the basically the number one person behind that push. And then the Chinese Investment Corporation did a lot of deals, buying this and buying that on behalf of the nation. Remember that. Kleptocrats always do things in the name of the nation and the people. So they do it on behalf of the nation. So, and that time, Wang Qishan really need a lot of people to help him, because you're thinking about the money, just thinking about 1.2 trillion. Okay, and then how do you steal the money? Because you have to steal the money based on some scheme, right? Based on some transaction. There has to be money moving. There has to appear to be transactions. Has to appear legitimate business activities. So he definitely desperately needed talents. So if you look at the parallel, and then when TPG bought into the CICC in 2010, it gives you another aha moment. So now finally, the managing partner of TPG, which is Shan Weijian, left. The year he left, then TPG bought into the CICC, which is the China International Capital Corp. So there's a lot of things you can find between these two. So what I think is, Miles never directly said that, but Miles said Shan Weijian's directly work for Wang. But I think they have a protege relationship. So Wang probably somehow, maybe either directly or indirectly, recruited Shan. Okay, because when the country is sending you to studying abroad, the country, they register you as a registered spy under the nation. But who your loyalty lies in is really later on up to you to choose. So I think somewhere around the line between 1995 or even earlier, 1995 or even earlier, they have established a relationship, and the loyalty and start grow. And Wang Qishan is helping Shan Weijian building his career after he left the faculty posts in the Wharton. And so all the things not shared by Miles, but it's just me from my research linking things together. Nicole, do you have anything to add?
Thank you for sharing. It's really mind-blowing, and I think you're right. The kleptocrats, they always need to find a way. They need to find I think they also choose the people. They need to find quite talented people who can launder the money for them and do the right thing for them, and know the rules of the game, and and keep on playing it. I suppose. Sorry.
Yeah, that's great. So I think it's a good segue to the part that you planned. So we're going to start talking about the death of Wang Jian. So Nicole, why don't you start with the PPT 11, and give us a little bit brief on who Wang Jian is.
Okay, I think if you look at Wang Jian's education background, and you can see I think he's quite talented. Because the subject he chose was not an easy subject, and it has the high requirement for studying, and so basically, and his major really matched his career later on. So like aviation, and and then. So that shows his ability, I think, and I think later on, because he worked with Chen Feng, so Chen acted as the public face of the company, while Wang was a hands-on manager with a lower public profile. From the pictures, and maybe not this one, no problem. And if you look at Wang Jian's picture, you actually can see. He's quite different to Chen Feng. Chen Feng is more confident, and whenever there's a picture taken of of both of them. Chen Feng will always look at the camera, right into the camera, but Wang Jian sometimes just look down. He's quite shy and I think a bit more reserved. And so I think this is kind of like something brief about Wang Jian. So he's very successful, and he's got the right background, and then he was chosen. And actually, it brought me a question. Actually, so but you don't need to answer. I just want to put the question. I think in a CCP-controlled China, and I think so is being successful a good thing? And because so many young people and the parents want them to get a good education, they want them to be successful. Even like what you mentioned before, like your friends, they went abroad and they will hide back to China, and because they already got a good jobs in the West, they also want to make some extra money and a good treatment, a good holiday. Why not? And then I think maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think lots of the Chinese people who's born in China, I think we don't have very good sense of intelligence properties. I think, because even though I think when now I'm working in the West, and I still think the colleagues from back from China, they don't really care about copyright, all these things. Even though the school, like the company I work, will mention, oh, you can only copy 10% of certain things. But if I work in the Chinese department anyway, and I will be told by my boss who's Chinese, just say it doesn't really matter. You just print more. No. Small things like that. Sorry. And so, yeah.
What's your question, Nicole? What's
So
your first
my question is, do you really want to be successful? And what is being successful? And if you are, how do you view success if you live back in the CCP-controlled China?
Okay, so I think the answer to your first question, do you want to be successful, is yes. Absolutely. There's no any other answer to it. But I think the second question is there's a lot to it. So depending on how you define successful, right? So in China right now, we know everybody defines successful as how much money you make, or how big of a house you possess. It's all materialistic things that determine the level of your successfulness. So that is wrong. Okay, so if that's the successful definition, that is wrong. So successful is not just money, although money could be one of the indicator of whether you are successful or not, because it implies you might have the ability to gather wealth, you might have the ability to, to establish network, create a great personal relationship with people. So implied a lot of good attributes that brought you that success in the first place. So I think, but the key question is, how can you be successful is so important. As just you mentioned, in China right now, people are getting ahead. They don't even think about how did they get ahead. So in the last show we talk about, a lot of those CCP officials, or even nowadays, in a society that's secularized, people want to get ahead. They bribe people. Right? The bribe could take a monetary form, could take a sexual kind of a way. They have a girlfriend, but they might want their girlfriend sleep with the boss, and so the boss could give them a promotion. The morality is fallen. There's no right and wrong. There's no true and false. So that's the scary part. So that's why we say we need to wake people up. It's not about success that's a fault. Everybody wants to be successful. That's a human nature. You want to be a better you tomorrow. You want to improve every single day. So everybody have that drive. If you don't, then you might be depressed. But anyway, you should have that drive, right? We strive to be better ourselves tomorrow. But how do you be better? How do you be more successful if that is centered on lie and deception? That is wrong. That is fail. There's no success here. So all those people, they might be the best and brightest, man or woman in China, but out of their no fault, they want to be better, and then they picked by an evil CCP, the kleptocrats, and they have a very clear a purpose, outgo. They know exactly how they're going to use you. Okay, and they picked you. Like Wang Jian, he's a good man. According to a lot of people who know him personally, he at least is a man that kept his words, right? Miles said that.
Yeah.
Miles said Wang Jian from, later on, the people who used to work for Wang Jian, they all vouched that, this is true. This is one characteristics of Wang Jian that is absolutely 100% accurate, is he is a man of his words. If he promised you something, he will do it. And how many of other people like him in CCP's world? None. Right? They're all about backbiting. They're all about betrayal. So at least Wang Jian died as an honest man, although, he worked for the wrong guy, because as intelligent as he was when he graduated from the university, maybe he's a top, students in his class. That's why he got the training opportunity in Japanese airline as a scholarship, right? So all of this was was watching and observing by the CCP kleptocrats. Chen Feng worked with Wang Qishan in World Bank. That's how they know how he know Wang Qishan. So Chen Feng act as a recruiter. So Chen Feng is looking for people to executing, Wang Qishan's stealing of the nation. So he find this bright young man who died at age 57 because of, the kleptocrats and the evil regime, right? So I'm hoping that I answered your question, although my answer is kind of a convoluted and lengthy. Sorry about that.
That was so good. Thank you so much. And I think let's not be Wang Jian, and I think don't be the right person, and like try to be successful in the wrong system. And I think I really like what you said about like the CCP want everybody to lose their mortality and the basic mortality, forget about their human nature, and they want people to be all materialistic, possessed with money. So it's a lot easier for them to kind of put a spell on you, like a curse, and you will just follow the money and you try to do whatever. You will be enslaved, basically. Thank you so much, and really like your answers, and I'm totally with you. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, thank you very much for your summary. That's great. So maybe we finish really quickly because we're already 3:10. We're already an hour mark. So we're gonna quickly gone through the death of Wang Jian. We're just gonna open the intro and then we're continuing our next show because we're gonna talk a little bit more about what happened before Wang Jian died. Because before Wang Jian died is really, it's really mysterious. It's really skeptical because there's a lot of hate. Even years before he dies. So we will talk about it in our next episode. But I just want to go to slide number 12. We maybe stop at slides number 12. Wang Jian's last vacation. So he died on July 3rd, 2017 in the morning, probably around 10:30 to 11 to 12:30, somewhere between there. Okay. So, but people will ask why Wang Jian, went to France and went to province at that time. So this is what I found online. So this is a news. It's Open de France. So it's basically a golf tournament. And in this news, it says the entry of the tournament into the Rolex Premier Series. HNA is a leading group in different sectors such as tourism, finance, or airports. It became the little partner of the France Open from 2017. So that means 2017 is the very first year they sponsored the France Open golf tournament. For 5 years, $7 million will be paid, and is to say approximately 6.6 million euros for just kind of naming the events. As you see on the picture, it's HNA and Open de France. The event, which is oldest in Europe, has taken a step forward and joined the Rolex, blah, blah. So it tells you that HNA truly is a global organization, right? And that's why I missed Bannon and say they are the, possibly the biggest financial companies because they have 400 subsidiaries and the transaction they do and the in and outs, it's amazing. And it become the perfect vehicle for laundering money for those CCP's kleptocrats. And maybe, maybe we go to slide 14. We will end here. And when we come back in the next episode, maybe Nicole, you can introduce to us in terms of what the outside world, what the major media outlets reporting Wang Jian's death. But today we end this picture ends here. So this is a saying by a former Soviet KGB defector, Walter Krivsky. he's long gone. I think he died in 1941. But he once said, any fool can commit a murder, but it takes an artist to commit a good natural death. Okay, so we will go into the details of the death of Wang Jian if you're willing to watch, and we will go to the events that happened prior to his death, and then we will walk you through the details. So I think that's it for today. Nicole, do you have anything to add before we say goodbye?
No, thank you very much for ending it with this. I think it's a very poetic kind of like a quote. I think, but I'm very happy, and because the kleptocrats, they're definitely not artists because they can't fake a very good natural death of Wang Jian. Yeah.
That's right, absolutely. And we have all the evidence and we have all the questions that will lead you to be the detective yourself to see how did Wang Jian really died. Okay, so thank you for watching the legal battle of the century, and thank you KK for the OBS support, and thank you Nicole for the wonderful stuff that you shared on the show, and thank you our audience. We will see you this Friday at 1 p.m. By the way, I just want to confirm that starting next week, our show will be on Monday and Friday at 1 p.m. Okay, this week is a little bit coordination and changing time because we're just trying to make sure everybody is comfortable with the time. So the next episode is on this Friday at 1 p.m. Okay, so thank you for watching. Take care, and we will see you on Friday. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
这些人要么丢失了，要么找不着了，要么被抓了，要么进在监狱里，要么自杀了。而且绝大多数人都有一个共同的死法，叫堕落死。因为那里有一个独裁的政党，叫共产党。海航是代表共产党在西方的一个间谍平台、洗钱平台和对西方政治进行蓝金黄的渗透平台。
1年多已卖了3500多亿，是全世界数第1号。
Over two events, one that happened in London earlier in the spring, and then one that happened in Turkey several weeks ago. The one in the spring was the poisoning of Russian dissidents or Russian citizens in London. And the one the last couple of weeks was looks like the killing of a Washington Post columnist, Khashoggi, in Turkey. And both these situations, as tragic as they were, created an international media firestorm. Well, what we're here today, and Miles Guo is going to walk you through, is something that's quite frankly stunning. Literally hundreds, if not thousands, of the best and the brightest of the Chinese people are either missing, have been imprisoned, have committed suicide, have died under mysterious circumstances, or have had their assets taken from them and are impoverished. And the world's media today has not connected the dots, or there's literally been no outrage. Now, this is not one or two isolated cases, and these are not people who are not insignificant in media, in their corporate life, in the financial life, in government, in the military. It's across the board, and it's men and it's women. It is absolutely stunning that this could go on in a culture, a global culture that's connected by media, and there's literally crickets. Well, that ends today. And it ends because one man's prepared to stand up and say he's not prepared to tolerate this, and he will use every asset at his disposal to bring truth to this, to make sure the Chinese people do not come under any more assault as they're already coming from the Chinese Communist Party and the senior leadership of the CCP. Today is about recklessness and accountability. As many people in the world, and particularly in the world's financial centers, are starting to understand, the Chinese Communist Party and the senior leadership of the CCP have acted financially recklessly over the last 10, 15, or 20 years. And that printing of currency and increasing of debt and everything that that's causing and will cause in the future, I believe in a coming financial crisis, can be seen in the example that Miles Grove is going to walk through today. We have one of the, if not the largest financial company in the world, that has essentially been created from a very small company, and from 2014 to 2018 became, I think, arguably the largest financial company in the world, with the aid and support of major Western financial institutions and major financial players in the West. And the question has to be, how reckless was this? Who benefited with this? Who owns this? Who took these assets from the Chinese people? Who profited off this? Who looked the other way?